In the traditions attributed to Astonis, the legendary Persian magus, often cited in Greco-Roman sources, sacrifices and offerings played a vital role in establishing communion with supernatural entities. These acts were not simply ritual formalities, but were understood as powerful exchanges meant to align the human practitioner with divine and elemental forces, unlocking access to esoteric knowledge, protection, or magical efficacy. Ostanis was a figure associated with ancient magical and alchemical traditions. Is depicted in various later texts as emphasizing precision, purity, and intention in these ritual offerings. The sacrifices and offerings described in works associated with Astonis were not universally about blood or animal rites. Instead, they included a wide array of ritual actions, such as the burning of specific herbs, libations of wine or honey, the use of rare resins and aromatics, and occasionally the symbolic use of animal parts or correspond to planetary or elemental forces. The use of animal parts to correspond to planetary or elemental forces. These offerings were thought to provide nourishment or favor to spirits, demons or daemons, or gods who served as intermediaries in the transmutation of matter and the elevation of the souls or the soul. Ostanis emphasized that the practitioner must be ritually clean before making an offering. This often involved periods of fasting, purification through bathing in specifically prepared water, and the avoidance of impure thoughts or actions. The offering was seen not as a bribe, but as an act of harmonization, where the material world was refined and presented in a form that could attract or please higher beings. Incense, in particular, held a central place in these rites. Specific formulas were burned during incantations to draw down the influence of celestial powers or to invite the presence of a divine intermediary. In magical texts bearing Astonis's name or influence, the selection of the right time, usually according to astrological calculations, was as important as the material of the offering. An animal sacrifice, when described, was not arbitrary but symbolic. For instance, a white cock might be used in operations involving solar spirits, while a black goat might be associated with chthonic or underworld intelligence. However, such practices were always framed within a strict system of correspondence. The sacrificial act was seen not as an act of destruction, but as a moment where the vital essence of the offering was released and transformed into spiritual medium. Astonis's Astonis also described votive offerings, crafting objects dedicated to a spirit or power in thanks or requests. These could include engraved gems, miniature figurines, or tools used in ritual magic. These items were often buried, burned, or placed in sacred locations believed to be thin places between the worlds. In this way, the practitioner honored the forces they were invoking and also left behind a trace of intention in the material realm to act as a continual petition or magnet for spiritual assistance. Another aspect of Astonis's thought was that offerings could be internal as well as external. Acts of devotion, recitation of sacred names, or the practice of ascetic disciplines were viewed as sacrifices of ego or worldly desire. Such inner offerings were seen as particularly pleasing. Demonstrating the practitioner's readiness to receive wisdom and carry it responsibly. If the translations attributed to Arius of Heracleopius or Heracleopolis are allegorical in nature, they likely reflect interpretive traditions common to late Hellenistic esoteric and magical schools. In this approach, allegories serve as a symbolic narrative intended to convey deeper spiritual, philosophical, or cosmological meanings beneath their surface. Epius, traditionally known as the builder of the Trojan horse, is not merely seen as a clever artisan, but may be interpreted as a figure representing the initiate or mystic who constructs a vessel for containing or channeling hidden forces. This parallels broader themes in Hermeticism and alchemical thought, where the act of constructing a vessel symbolizes the preparation of the soul or the world for spiritual transformation. The Trojan horse itself can be viewed as an outer form that conceals an inner reality. Just as the warriors were hidden within the horse, esoteric teachings often hide deeper truths beneath accessible or seemingly simple narratives. This act of concealment reflects the core idea that sacred knowledge must be protected from the uninitiated, and revealed only through stages of interpretation. In this framework, the horse becomes a metaphor for the outer shell of sacred doctrine, or the warriors represents the active transformation potential hidden within. Arius of Heracleopolis, as the transmitter of Epius' teachings, takes on the symbolic role of the spiritual mediator or interpreter. In many occult systems, the process of translation or transmission is not simply about language, but about filtering higher truths into a form comprehensible for the seeker. Arius stands as a figure bridging the gap between the hidden mysteries and human understanding, much like the intermediaries described in alchemical and magical traditions, which are necessary for any transformation from a base to a higher state. Allegories involving tools, blueprints, or construction found within these writings can be interpreted as metaphors for internal or spiritual processes. Tools may represent faculties of discernment. Architectural plans may reflect divine order. And construction itself may symbolize the deliberate shaping of the soul. These themes connect directly to Astonis's teachings that all transformation is guided by a system of mediating processes and agents. The mention of Heracleopolis also contributes symbolically. Known in Egyptian tradition as a sacred center of priestly knowledge linked to the god Harishef, the city's name evokes a setting associated with initiation and sacred learning. In Astonis's esoteric framework, sacred geometry and consecrated space are essential for spiritual work, further aligning with the symbolic role of Heracleopolis as a place of transmission. Figures and motifs in the translated allegories might also represent internal states, cosmic principles, or states of the initiatory path. A builder could symbolize willpower or creative intent. A secret mechanism might stand for divine law, and a collapsing structure might represent the breaking of illusion or ego.